Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Now we'll talk about our big story for today, which is goal number 7. On Wednesdays, we do a special series on sustainable development goals, which is to talk about the plan to have affordable and clean energy by the year 2030. Now, this is in line with the plan by the World Bank and African Development Bank to provide affordable electricity for 300 million Africans by the year 2030. That will be the thrust of our conversation now. And joining us for this conversation, we have Babawale Obayanju, who is the Communications Coordinator, Friends of the Earth. Glad to have you join us, Babawale.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me this morning.
Right.
I hope
Thank
I'm
you for
audible
also
enough.
accepting the invitation to be part of this conversation. Here you have Sustainable Development Goals number 7. Let's start with that background, which is expected to provide clean and affordable energy or electricity by the year 2030. I would like you to first of all give an assessment of the journey so far. This is year 2024, and 2030 is just 6 years away. The plan to ensure that globally you have clean and affordable energy by the year 2030. Let me start with your assessment of the level of preparedness and the probability that this is going to be a reality by the year 2030. Your assessment.
Good morning once again. Yeah, so for assessment, 2030 is just 6 years away. Globally, I wouldn't say that we are very close globally, but maybe in some regions of the world, yes. When I mean some regions of the world, some regions in Europe, some regions in the US, some regions in Asia are already on that pathway towards a clean energy system, just like the goal is aimed at. So many parts of the global north are already on that pathway to clean, renewable energy use in their energy mix. If not, some countries have already attained 90%, some have attained 80, some are close to 100. But for us in the global south, uh, we are still a far cry from achieving that goal in 6 years' time, because not many have had access to this clean, renewable energy system being proposed by this, and affordable too. Clean, because the goal says clean and affordable energy, and goes further to talk about this form of energy would be. So for us in the global south, I would say that we are still a we're still far away from achieving this goal. 6 years time, I don't think it's even possible that we'll get there. But let's see how it goes. But for the global north, there are many of the countries in the global north are really close to it already. To achieve that, but not at the expense of people. Yeah. So let's start the conversation from there.
All right, let me do a follow-up on that. And if I may go by your word that we are far from this goal. What are the critical issues here for those who are making plans, or you perceive that the level of their preparedness is better than the other climb for the far north and the far south? Let's do a comparison and then do an assessment of the critical issues here. For the African continent, what do you think are the issues that Africa is contending with, which is perhaps slowing the pace of development and even catching up with this goal? And for those who are making progress in a bid to provide clean and affordable electricity or energy, what do you think they are doing differently that the other climb could also learn from? Let's do a kind of comparison to see how the level of preparedness can be made better with this conversation. Can you hear me, Obawale? All right, it seems we're having this connection here as regards the internet. All right, the goal here is goal number 7. On Wednesdays, we do a special series looking at sustainable development goals. And the intention is to ensure that the world becomes safer and better by the year 2030. But specifically today, we're looking at goal number 7 that talks about the need to provide safe and affordable electricity or energy by the year 2030. This is in line with the plan by the World Bank and the African Development Bank to ensure that they provide affordable electricity for 300 million Africans. You know, that's the plan. It's a partnership between the World Bank and the African Development Bank. We also need to look at the impact of that. What will be the impact of that on this project? This ambitious project is estimated will call these two entities about $30 billion to achieve this. And the plan is to invest on renewable energies like solar and the rest of them to ensure that you have affordable electricity by the year 2030. Our guest today has started his conversation looking at the level of preparedness. So let's get back to him to see how he can make more development in that regard. I hope you can hear me now.
Me to be great this morning, but I would fight it.
Is the will to
Yeah. So
overcome their
coming to
challenges
us
now, the will to
on our,
overcome it, that's more important, and that's what you're doing this morning, so we appreciate that. So you were talking
yeah.
about what other climes are doing differently for African to be able to learn about. We're talking about the level of preparedness. You, according to your estimation, that our
Yeah.
African continent, we're not there yet. So my question is, what are the critical issues here? What are the challenges? What are the issues slowing down the pace of progress when it comes to achieving this goal by the year 2030?
So for the African continent, for the global South, not just the African continent, the global South countries, as we've had, because we have that divide already, the global North, the global South. The global South countries, many of them um, are not even close to achieving this, like I said earlier, for several reasons. For example, we've been speaking about renewable energy transitioning from fossil fuel regime or energy systems to clean renewable energy. And this transition requires some things to be in place. For example, the energy needs in the global north are already defined. And whatever energy they are providing needs to meet particular energy needs in different sectors in the global north. But the energy needs in the global south many times have not been defined. What I mean by this, energy required when, where, how, by the people have not been defined. So many times you have decisions or plans being brought to the people without the people. And there is no way you can actually have a solution for the people without the people. The energy needs in Africa, for example, many homes, like research have just shown that over 600 million Africans are don't have access to energy. Some have never been connected to any energy source beyond their natural biomass energy sources. Some have been connected at some point and have been disconnected at some other point. Some have connection lines reaching to where they are, but they've never experienced the energies in their homes. So there are different levels of this energy poverty or energy crisis in Africa and in many parts of the global north. So first, we need to do an assessment. Now, AFDB and partners are saying they want to empower 300 million homes with energy. But the question is, was there any, because I tried to do some background study on this, to say that the energy being provided will meet the actual needs of the people where they are, when they want it, where they want it, how they want it, because which is a critical part of this energy provision. Because the SDG goal says clean, affordable, reliable, sustainable, and more. All these are clear definitions in itself. For example, now look at Nigeria. We experienced by creating different bands of energy transmission to different people based on your economic power. And this energy being provided is not as affordable as in comparison to the minimum wage or the earning or the income level of majority of the people on the continent or in Nigeria. I'm speaking Nigeria specifically now in Nigeria. So now there's energy, but not many people can afford it. That in itself is a problem. So when we're talking about getting close to 2030 to achieve this goal set by Gwen, achievable because the energy we have at the moment is not even affordable for the common citizen of the country to access. So it's practically made for particular kinds of people on some particular income level to access that kind of energy that's available. So that in itself first is a problem. Now looking at the other issue of renewable energy, yeah, we're talking about having solar energy, wind energy. All of these energies require some amount of investment, require some amount of resources to produce them. Firstly, we're talking about bringing solar energy. Where is this solar system being manufactured? Far away in China, far away in the US, or far away somewhere else in the global north. Where will the critical materials required to make these panels come from? Africa. So we are experiencing huge another level of exploitation in the areas of the minerals required to make the solar panels, the wind machines, and the likes. Being extracted from Africa at very cheap costs, taken to Europe, taken to China, taken to the global north generally, areas where production is being made. Finished products are brought into the country at very high rates that people cannot afford. The battery systems, the inverter systems, the cables, and every like on the likes. Many of these products are not produced within the country. They are not produced within Africa. They are taken as export products outside of Africa, finished product made and sent back to us at very high cost, so which is making it not possible for us to afford it, which is one of the goals of the SDG 7, affordability. Renewable energy sources are reliable. Yes, people who have proven it, who have used it, have shown that it's reliable. But it is not affordable for the people of the global south. So that in itself is making us want not to achieve that goal because the energy being provided is not affordable because people cannot have access to it. So if the deal that's been signed by FDB and its partners to bring this energy to 300 million homes or 300 million people, the question is how. So these are pertinent questions that we need to start answering. So I think I should stop there for now. Let's have more conversation rather than a monologue.
All right, great. I like the fact that you've been able to establish the disparity between the global south and the global north as regards the level of preparedness. But now let's look at this reference story, which is the investment being done by the World Bank and the African Development Bank, how we can reshape these. Now, you said something earlier that for this goal to be realized, there must be proper investment. And I want to believe that's what World Bank in partnership with AFDB is doing now. Now, what impact will this partnership made on the level of preparedness for the goal 2030 to provide affordable energy? You talk about the disparity between the global south and global north. Now, this kind of investment is expected to make impact on the level of preparedness for the global south. Now, don't you think if this is something to go by, it will make impact on the level of preparedness for 2030? And what are your expectations if this partnership is going to achieve the purpose intended? What would you expect that these two entities will put in place? They've also emphasized that the investment is going to be on renewable energies. But if you think this is not enough because you asked the question, how? So what do you think? What do you expect from this kind of partnership for the purpose intended to be achieved in this regard?
Thank you. So, going back to antecedents, looking at the people who are involved in this partnership, the antecedents in the global south has been one leading with according to Fela, sorrow, tears, and blood. They've always provided, especially the World Bank, loans that have kept us in debt, and that will keep because, for example, many parts of the global south are in debt, huge debt, because of the loans and deals signed with the World Bank. Many of which, or many of those loans that are not the countries are not able to pay back with the interest and everything. So now signing up a new deal with AFDB is not even clear how this investment, because I tried to check around to see if I can find any any clear explanation on how the investment is going to be. It's not clear. And we know banks don't do business for free. You put in your money because FB, for example, is out, have investment in the African Development Bank. And we know naturally, any businessman, any business-oriented person puts his or her money to usury with an expectation to get a return on investment. And they put their monies based on the fact that this investment is going to yield particular amounts or particular figures in a particular period of time. So we are not even sure of what that investment plan is or what are the investment incentives being offered to the from World Bank, Rockefeller Foundation, and the like. So that in itself is something that we need to think about. What is the level of this partnership? What is the level of the investment? What is the level of the return on investment that these guys are going to benefit from the global north? I mean, from the global south, particularly Africa. That question needs to be answered. Secondly, you're talking about providing 300 million homes with or 300 million people, is it homes or people or yeah, people with energy. What level of energy are we talking about? For example, there's a story being done by a friend of mine on a project somewhere in Ijebu. There are homes that have access to, in quotes, solar light, where they have just this small MTN Sun King charging system that can power a bulb, electric bulb, and a TV. So we need to also understand if this is the kind of energy system that is going to be provided for homes, where you can have just an electricity bulb powered in your home, or to power your television, or to power a refrigerator. What level are we talking about? We don't even know. So just say, because I can tell you, I brought a project to Lagos, for example. I've powered 10 million homes in Lagos. The definition of how did I power 10 million homes? Did I just provide them with electricity for use for bulbs to have their homes lit up every time of the day? Or did I provide energy that the people need at particular time to solve particular problems? So these are the questions that we need to look at practically. What will this investment be like? What kind of energy is being provided? What energy? Because, for example, the barber in the barber shop, the kind of energy he requires in his shop or her shop is different from what the woman who sells akara on the street, the kind of energy she requires for her, or the man who sells akara, the woman or the man who sells akara on the street, the kind of energy they require for their shop. Or for the man who has a 4-bedroom apartment, and for the man who has a 2-bedroom apartment, or for the man who has a 1-bedroom apartment, their energy needs are different. So are we looking at providing the same energy across board, or with consider how this at different times and different spaces? So all of this conversation we don't know. But the investment we know, wherever World Bank has put their money, most of the time has come back with sorrow, tears, and blood, because people are brought into indebtedness, huge indebtedness. And we know this definitely with the partners, the key partners here, Rockefeller Foundation, World Bank, my brother. It's going to be it's the same story. It's the same story. More debt for the people of Africa in the process of providing energy in quotes for them. Because if this is clear, it should be black and white everywhere. How the investment is going to be made, but that is not clear anywhere. Secondly, we're talking about solar energy systems. This requires a lot of materials, from the solar panels to the batteries to the inverter systems and the other connections in between. These are huge materials. And like somebody said yesterday when we had the conversation, there's enough materials, critical as they call it now, critical or critical minerals in quotes, because somebody is calling it critical because it's critical to their own benefit. So those materials they now call critical minerals like the lithium, the cobalt, and the like. There is enough to meet public needs, but there's not enough to meet private needs. What do I mean by this? Now we're talking about creating electric cars when there are people who don't even have access to public transport system in the first place. So we are talking about providing more electric cars for individuals rather than providing enough public transport system whereby we don't have to produce, for example, if 10 cars will require us um, um, 10, for example, 10 lithium batteries. If you provide a box that will take 25, 30 people per needing two of those lithium batteries that would have saved 10 cars in a bus to serve. So are you seeing the picture I'm trying to make? What energy need is being met? If you make this provision that it is generally for the good of the commons, like you have community development energy provision, where you don't have to think about the individual homes, but think about this in communal level. We don't know what level these forms of energy are going to take. So there's not enough critical minerals available to meet the needs of every private person, but there's enough material to meet the needs of communal people, which is what we have been talking about, that where this kind of energy needs to come, it needs to be community driven. It needs to be community led. Community needs to determine, okay, this is our energy needs in this place. This is how we want this energy to be. This is where we want the energy to be. And these are the processes, but those things are not. So until we get these basic things in place and right, providing this energy might just be a mirage, might just be something in the books, something for the news, something for the media, something for the headline. We need to define how this is going to be.
All right. Now, let me
Is
make reference to a
this
statement released in this regard by the African Development Bank, and I would love you to take a listen and react to it. Now, the statement reads, all new power generation will come from renewable energy sources such as solar, hydro, and wind. And the bank, referring to African Development Bank, will work to help countries still relying on fossil fuels to green their electricity production. Now, the plan here is to ensure that countries who are still depending on fossil fuels, this money is released to help them in generating or green their energy generation. Now, if this is something to go by, which was a question you asked earlier, how? I hope this explains that. But if this is something to go by, because the plan now is to help these countries generate from renewable sources rather than depending on hydro and the rest of them. Now, if this is done, don't you think it will be better than what we used to have? Earlier, you talked about the need for investment. Here you have these banks collaborating to invest. You raise the concern of debt, and it is not a bad thing to have loans. And if you look at what the World Bank and the African Development Bank is doing, it's not limited to just Africa alone. It's a global thing to go about going for loans. But isn't it the responsibility of the leadership of these countries to ensure that these loans are used for the right purpose? But I just wanted you to react to this, emphasizing on the fact that the essence of this investment is to help these countries transit to renewable energy sources in terms of green their energy production. Don't you think this is something to go by, which is hope that is going to impact on 300 million Africans?
puts that it's an investment to help green the energy system. It is perfect, which is the particular way the world is going. Taking the green paint and painting it over a dirty system. It's actually what is happening, and I like that. I like the way you use it. Greening the energy system, painting it green, and not actually making the system in itself green. What do I mean by this? What system led the dirty fuel energy regime or period? Capitalism, where it was so everything is geared towards what can I make from this per time, not what can be provided to help the system become better. So first, to green the energy system, we need to change the energy, the system behind this greening process. It's like in Nigeria, for example, where we had the military change from the military regime to civilian. It was just a change of apparel. The system governing the two is apparently the same. So until we change that system, that capitalist system, that capitalism system, we will not make much progress because everything is still going to be based on what product am I bringing, how am I going to sell it for profit. Until that system is addressed, we're just painting the energy system green. Like you said, we're just green. I like this picture. Just greening the system, painting it green, making it look green in quotes. The system been in place. I visited Togo earlier this year to see a beautiful project in quotes where solar panels was planted in a huge expanse of land in a small community in the village. The start part of that party, the community allowed them to do the hunting contract and blah blah blah, and they had the panels there. In that on that land, nothing grows on that land. What I mean, nothing grows on that land. Only the solar panels are there. The community themselves don't have access to the solar energy being generated from that panel. The energy generated from that system goes back to the national grid in the main town in Togo, and they send it back to these people to buy. So you're generating energy from the land of these people without them having access to that energy being generated from their land. So it's a capitalist system in itself. So until we address those systems, we're not going to make much progress. We're not going to make much progress. So the system first needs to be tackled. That capitalist-based system needs to be handled. That business model system needs to be handled. Because until we do that, that will not make much progress. Then secondly, there's a huge historical record of debt being owed the global south. What do I mean by this? People who have contributed, this is become like a cliche now. People who have contributed the least to the climate crisis are the ones suffering from the impact, the direct impacts from it. People have extracted the materials from Africa, from the global south, for a long period of time, out of Africa, producing what they just empower their machines and their factories and everything at the expense of people and lives and livelihoods. So there's a debt that needs to be paid. So if these people are talking about investing in this energy system, it should come in the form of grants and not loan. Because this money is, if you check the people who are investing in the African Development Bank, for example, they are the major countries who have succeeded in polluting and contributing to the highest amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, the major cause of the climate crisis in the first place, which is one of the reasons why the world is saying we should move from dirty energy to clean renewable energy, because we are trying to solve a climate crisis problem. But the issue here in the climate crisis, there's a justice issue that also needs to be addressed, which is where the issue of climate debt comes into play. Because those who have contributed the least to the matter are suffering the highest from the impact of the climate crisis. And for them to be able to adapt, mitigate, or prevent, or whatever process to help ensure that we have a life for ourselves, there's a debt in the clause that needs to be paid. And those people who owe these are the ones investing. It should not come to those people who have been impacted as loans. It should come to them as grants. This way would ensure that people can have affordable, reliable energy system where they need it when they need, where they need it, how they need it, and at the time when they need it. So those questions need to be addressed. Until they are addressed, we are still in the same system of impoverishing people, making this energy so-called available but not affordable and not accessible. And that way, we are not actually solving any problem. So we can't solve a problem by creating more problems. Until we address those things, we are not going to move forward. If, for example, now the production is not being done in Africa, which is one of the things we are saying, that if materials, African governments should be going into partnership with these people who are saying they want to invest in a clear term production agreement. That, see, materials that will be extracted from Africa will not be taken out of Africa. The production of these materials will be made in Africa. The energy training that we need, the technology training that we need will be made in Africa. So that these panels are the materials extracted here in Africa, for example, produced here in Africa, so that it is made affordable to the people who are here. Because when you export these materials and raw materials, it goes out cheaply to the global north. Production is made and sent back to us. Look at crude oil, for example. We are buying petrol now, diesel and the like, at very high cost because of this trade imbalance, because of this investment imbalance. Money goes, the product goes out, comes back to us in dollars, goes out in dollars, comes back. So the exchange rate itself is a problem. So we are already in a mess. So if we continue on that pathway, we are still going to land in a place where energy can never be affordable and can never be accessible to the people. So we need to change this dynamics. Production needs to be on the continent so that can reduce the cost of the materials required by people. For example, another example, look at the materials being produced: the solar panels, the batteries, when these things go bad, for them. So we are also building them in the future, materials that will be accumulated as waste, because some technology required to manage these products or repair these products are not on the continent. So it ends up being junk or being dirt or being trash in the system. So there are many, 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 many lines that we need to consider. So if this investment is going to come to us, the first point of call is, if the monies or the people investing, they have to invest that the production of the solar panels should be on the continent, within the continent, by the continent, where they need it. Right here. Look at all the plants being made. The one they call the transition minerals, critical minerals, all leaving the continent outside of production, out elsewhere, and imported to us at very huge cost. As that is coming in, even the government that are saying they're investing, or the people that are saying they're investing, are these products subsidized to be affordable to the people who need them? No. So that is part of why we should think about this monies or this investment coming in to come in as grant rather than loan. Because coming in as loan is going to impoverish us the more and put us in more debt, put us in more poverty, put us in a space where we truly cannot afford this energy system. So these are things that we need to consider. It's a whole lot of conversation, but there are things, historical perspective that needs to be put in place. There are climate debt that needs to be paid, and people need to also define how they want the energy, where they want the energy, when they want the energy, and how who should lead the process of managing that energy system. So these are conversations that we must have in this deal, and it must be made clear to us how they want to go about it.
I want us to play on some words now which are stated in the SDG goal. The word accessible, clean, and affordable. Because the essence of having this conversation is to see how we can shape this policy. Now, as an expert in this area, if we're going to have affordable, clean, and accessible energy by the year 2030, what are the call to actions you will put on the table for the various stakeholders, most importantly for the global south, who seems to be struggling with this initiative? I want us to be very specific here, because let's see how we can provide solutions so that we can see how we can shape policy in this regard. The word clean, the word affordable, and the word accessible. Let's play on them, for you to shed more light on how these goals can be achieved, looking at the word affordability and then having access to clean energy by the year 2030. Your take, please.
Okay. Let's start from clean. Clean in itself, because the way it has been defined generally, or the generally acceptable definition, that's framing clean means it's producing less um, greenhouse gas. So it's not contributing as much as the fossil fuel energy produces in terms of greenhouse gas production. So the energy that we are talking about is transiting into should produce less of carbon dioxide or carbon CO2, methane, and the like. So that form of energy first must take that into consideration. It must be clean. But the things we are transiting into as clean, renewable energy, the solar system, the uh, windmills, and the likes. Yes, as much as they are clean in the finality of the production, the journey towards the production has not been made completely clean. So that in itself, we need to look at that system of indeed making it as clean as possible, um, which comes into the system of extraction. We need to look at that system of extraction. Are we going to continue on the trajectory, on the pathway that we followed with the oil and gas exploitation and exploration? We know mining takes more space than the oil and gas drilling. So are we going to be looking at how do we ensure that this process of extracting the minerals, the materials required to make the solar panels, to make the lithium batteries, to make the inverter system, to make the electric car, is one that would have reduced amount of CO2 in the atmosphere or the greenhouse gases. So that process needs to be looked at clearly. And the other thing in that process of being clean is we also need to look at, yes, the entire stage of the whole process, from the extraction to the production to the distribution, and to the period when this, because all of these things have lifespan. The end product, the waste generation, the whole chain, we have to holistically look at it. I'm not just thinking about solving a problem in the immediate without looking at the consequences in the future. We have to look at the whole chain of production, which is why I mentioned earlier, like Gandhi would say, that there's enough material to meet our needs, but not enough to meet our greed. We need to define how these materials will be exploited for the production of energy that will be required for the commons and not the energy required for the individuals. That would mean, for example, extracting materials not for production of many private electric cars, the production of many public buses, which reduce the amount of cars we have on our street, or producing materials, excuse me, that would serve communal homes rather than serving individual homes, changing the way we build our homes, changing the way we use our energy system. All of these processes have to be considered. Um, Building homes that will require less use of air conditioning system, building homes that will require more use of natural air system, natural air lighting system, where we can use the energy of the sun that we have at an advantage during the day till like 7, 8 p.m. rather than having homes that don't will require you to have an electric bulb turned on almost 24 hours of the day. We need to look at the system of building. We need to go back and look at that. We need to look at the materials used. So it's a whole process. We need to actually sit down and look at it clearly. If we are to have clean energies, we need to look at the way it's produced, the way it's distributed, the way it's the end life of it, the way it's used in our homes, the way it's used in the place where they are required, and how they are being supplied. So that whole shit, that whole process, so everyone needs to be on board. The electrical engineer, the production engineer, the community person at home, the builders, the masons, the architects, the whole chain. Everyone needs to be on board. We need to redefine how we build, how we energize our homes, our system to make it as clean as possible. That is just one aspect, which also has many other technicals. I'm not going to go into all of that this morning. Affordability, I also made that clear earlier on. What we have seen in previous time is a rental system where we are just landlords renting our lands to people who want to come in and extract the materials they need and take it out at our expense. All we just care about is just paying rent to us. But that system needs to change for it to be affordable. We need to be not at the tail end of the production line. We need to be at the forefront of the production line where we contribute. Materials extracted don't leave. They are produced within the continent by people from the continent, not expatriates coming in to help us produce. No, Africans themselves, Nigerians, Ghanaians, Cameroonians, Africans themselves are the ones leading in the production, which would mean there needs to be a technology training, technology transfer, so that Africans can produce what they need, how they need it, where they need it, and this will reduce the amount, the production cost, the affordability of these materials on the continent, and puts us in a place where we are not beggars, where we are not going to get loans and put ourselves in more poverty. But this will now make us, we produce for ourselves. The excess that we have after our producing to meet our needs, we can sell to other parts of the world and contribute to the system of Ubuntu around the world. But we have to look at that dynamics and change that system of being landlords to be part of the people who build, who maintain, who manufacture, and who distribute these materials for our use first in the continent before we send out to other parts of the world, which is what they do elsewhere. China, for example, manufacture goods first that will meet their needs before they think about sending it to other parts of the world.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.